Welcome to the Thornton Review.
The show designed with you in mind. If it's important to you, it's important to us.
John L. Peacock Jr. grew up just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He entered the U.S. Navy just out of high school in the nuclear power program and served aboard the USS Sam Rayburn. John ended his service as an E6 after 8 years. He received his bachelor's degree in liberal arts from Excelsior University. During his 30-year career as a financial advisor with Edward Jones, John received numerous awards, including attending the highest production conference each year for over 20 years. John holds the following designations: Certified Financial Planner, Chartered Financial Consultant, and Certified Exit Planning Advisor. John has been active in the community and has served on numerous boards over the years. He currently serves on the boards of Gulf Coast Kids House, Baptist Foundation, and Sunday's Child. Hi, I'm Pueschel Schneier, Executive Producer and Manager of the Thornton Review. Thank you for tuning in. Our guest on today's show is John L. Peacock Jr., retired financial advisor, certified financial planner. So John, thank you for taking the time to come to our studio to talk with me today. It's great to have you here. Will you please introduce yourself?
Well, thanks, Michelle. It's my pleasure to be here to talk about kind of a topic I'm pretty passionate about. Like you mentioned, I've been in Pensacola about 30 years. Originally born and raised in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, so I'm a diehard Philadelphia sports fan. Went in the Navy right after high school. My parents didn't have any money, so I couldn't go to college. Didn't know anything about grants, loans, etc. Ended up getting that education later on. But what that did for me is got me out of the Philadelphia area. It got me exposed to a lot of different types of government and cities and how they run, etc. In 1995, I guess it was, I joined Edward Jones and had a 30-year career there, and just recently retired from that business. I'm father of 3 boys, a couple stepkids in there as well, and a whole bunch of grandchildren. Yeah, I love being in the Pensacola area, and it's a place I call home. I'm very passionate about it.
Well, congratulations on your retirement. And we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll begin our discussion with John L. Peacock, retired financial advisor. There is no government-funded program that can guide a man's thoughts. Only God can do that. Company can install any type of fence. When you call and mention the Thornton Review, you'll receive a $100 discount on your fence. They also offer military discounts. Vinyl fence, wood fence, aluminum fence, chain link fence. If it has the word fence, Alpha Fence Company can do it. 850-586-8020. 850-586-8020. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to begin our discussion with John Peacock. So John, thanks again for coming and having a discussion with me, because the entire concept of consolidating the government is very intriguing. Not a lot of people have probably even heard of that concept. and I hadn't heard of it until you told me about it. But I wanted to invite you onto the show to talk about the concept of consolidating our local government, our city council and our county commission. But first, let's start at the very beginning. You were involved with the transition from the ceremonial mayor to the strong mayor. Can you tell us the difference between a ceremonial mayor and a strong mayor?
Sure.
What does a strong mayor do that the ceremonial mayor couldn't do?
Sure, Michelle. Thanks for the question. As I mentioned, I traveled around a lot during my time in the Navy, et cetera. And one of those places I was at was Charleston, South Carolina. And Charleston, as you know, is a beautiful city on the water, a lot of history there, got some great beaches, et cetera. When I came to Pensacola, I always thought something was missing. And I went back in 2005, and it dawned on me one of the things that was missing was a leader. And in Charleston, they had Joe Riley, who ended up being mayor for 40 years. And I met with Mayor Riley and some others and figured out that their form of government was similar in nature to what we have at the state level and the federal level. There's an executive branch that's elected by the folks, and then there's a legislative branch, which is elected by the folks as well, right? So if you think about our congressman and the president, you think about our state legislature and the governor, there's a separation of powers, there's checks and balances. We didn't have that here in Pensacola. We had 10 city council members that formed our elected officials. 3 of them were at large. The rest of them were districts, and one of those people was appointed by their fellow city council members to be the quote-unquote mayor, who ran the meetings, they did all the ceremonial ribbon cuttings and those kind of things. But there was no power in that position. That position was done, this power, if you will, was in the hands of a city manager who was appointed by the 10 people on the city council. And what's frustrating for me there was that when I voted for somebody back then in the city, I could vote for 4 people, the 3 at large and my district person. Well, that means 6 other people can do things and make decisions that I don't have any input on. And I don't like that. I like to vote for the president. I like to vote for the governor. I like to vote for now the mayor. So I wanted somebody that woke up every day and their job, accountable to the people, was to move our community forward. So we started having a conversation about changing the form of government because the city charter hadn't been reviewed since the age of the radio. Been decades. When here we are, the age of the internet back then, and we hadn't reviewed it for a long, long time. So we said, let's at least review that. And the League of Women Voters actually joined forces with me and kind of helped encourage the city council to form a committee to study the form of government. And that committee came back, led by a bunch of great community members, Dee Davis, Crystal Spencer, and others. I can't remember all the folks on there. Anyway, they formed that committee and came back with a recommendation to change the form of government to a strong mayor, and then it was voted on by citizens.
Okay, so you spoke about the charter. So before we had the strong mayor, did we have the charter or okay? So
yeah, we had a charter. We don't have one in the county, but we had one in the city. But it hadn't been reviewed or amended or revised in 80 years. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Or you have a charter, you want to make sure you keep it up to date. One of the whole benefits of having a charter is you can mold that to fit the needs of your community, where clearly our needs changed over 60, 70, 80 years, but had never been reviewed.
Okay, but the county doesn't have a charter.
The county does not.
Okay, so what's the difference in the city having a charter and the county not having a charter? Like why does the city have a charter, and what does the charter do for the city?
Yeah.
And why does not the county have a charter, and what does that do against or for the county?
Yeah. So in the county not having a charter, they have to kind of follow all the state rules. The city does too, but then they can also amend a charter entity, whether it's county or the city, can also make rules specific to their entity. You know, they can tailor their unique need to the, tailor their charter to the needs of their community. Clearly, Escambia County has different needs than some county in the Central Florida, right? Where if they're non-charters, they have to follow what the state recommends versus kind of figuring out what we, the citizens, figure out what we need in our community. Well, that's the form of government, the different departments, how many commissioners, how many, all that kind of stuff, how much we pay them, etc. All that can be done and tailored at the local level.
Okay. Can you explain the process that you went through to get the strong mayor concept passed?
So we convinced the city council, and they were great at the time. There was a lot of debate, and there were some for and against.
Was there a study done to?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, they formed a commission.
Okay.
Charter Review Commission. I said a lot of great people were appointed. I can't remember the exact makeup of that commission, but a lot of the council members had appointed people. Then there's some other folks that were on there as well. They brought in experts from the League of Cities in Florida and other experts in and they had great debate and discussion. I don't know how long it lasted, but I want to say it was close to a year, where they met frequently in the sunshine, kind of developed the process, and then ended up writing a charter that the citizens ultimately voted on and passed. I think it was 52 to 48, so pretty decisively.
So here on the local level, can you tell me any individuals that were in on that initial discussion?
Well, again, I can't remember all of those, but I know Crystal Spencer was the chair. Dee Dee Davis was involved. I wish I could remember more. Pueschel, but there was a lot of great folks involved.
And did you have a candidate in mind before the entire idea was even executed?
No.
Was there any discussion to bring someone in from out of Escambia County or Pensacola? Or is that in the charter that the person has to be, you have to live here and you have for any certain amount of time?
Yeah, I can't remember the details there, but there are specific rules about, you have to live in a community for a certain period of time. There was here's the beauty of that effort. A lot of great leaders in this community wouldn't want to necessarily be on a county commission or a city council because they don't want to be one of X, one of 5, one of 10, one of whatever. They want to be in charge, right? A lot of leaders want to lead. They want the ability to kind of create a vision, run on that vision. So, my thought was, and it proved out in Pittsburgh and Charleston and other places, when you create a position that has leadership ability, people will come out of the woodwork that it would run for that role, run for that job that we didn't even know before. I didn't know Ashton Hayward before. He helped a little bit on the effort, but I didn't know him. He ran for that position because it was a leadership position. I asked people like Joe Riley from Charleston and Tom Murphy of Pittsburgh, would you have run for that position as mayor if it wasn't a true leadership position? The answer is always no. They don't want to be one of whatever. Not saying that our county commission and city council aren't leaders, but most true leaders want to be able to do that job and be a CEO. It's more of a CEO role, executive branch role, just like the president, just like the governor. They want that job to kind of create and have people follow behind their vision. So, there was nobody in mind ahead of time. I'm sure some people thought there were, but it wasn't. And just like the next couple elections, between when Mayor Robinson ran, when Mayor Reeves ran, there was 4 or 5 candidates when Mayor Reeves ran, right? That's great. More people, come out and try to be in that position, right? And there's always some that, they may or may not ever make it, but I love the fact that you have that debate and that discussion about the future of our city. And every 4 years, we get to pick which way we want to go. In our current form in the county, you get to vote for 1 of 5. And that means 3 of the 4 people you can't vote for can pick a direction that you might not want to go, and you don't have any say so. And there are so many examples of that I can give you.
And then depending on the issues,
right.
Like you're voting for a person, and you're voting for a concept and an idea and a philosophy in that person, but he's 1 of 5.
Right.
So that doesn't mean that your issues are going to get passed.
Exactly. And what's important to the people in the Beulah area is different than the people on the beach, right, or people downtown. And
we all have different issues.
The benefit of having a leader, and I'm not saying we necessarily, that's my opinion, to consolidate. There's no economic argument against consolidation. I mean, think about it, Pueschel, it makes sense. Right now you have 2 of everything. You have 2, a department in the city and a department in the county. I mean, whether it's police and fire, whether it's parks and recs, whether it's...
And the mayor is only over the one in the county. So what steps had to be done to get to the strong mayor? Did the people voted on it? It went on general election ballot.
Absolutely, went on the ballot.
But what were the steps before that? Who had to approve it to go on the ballot?
The city council had to do that. The county's a little bit different bird, but because we're a charter, the city council was more to vote on it, put it on a ballot.
Were county residents able to vote on it, or only city?
Just the city.
Wow. Okay.
In the county, when we tried this before, right? We tried this right after that. We tried to do that. And the county commission at the time approved and voted on to send that issue to the state legislature. Our local delegated local body said, yep, they're going to form a consolidation commission. And there was a whole list of people that were going to be on that. There were 25 altogether, people that served on this commission. led by former Chief Justice Supreme Court Ken Bell, great guy. Put together we had all kinds of people on that committee and came up with an actual study plan. When we presented it again to the county and then therefore the local delegation, some of the county commission decided after all that work that they didn't even want to let it go forward, which is a little disappointing that they, after all that work, they decided not to let it go to the people. But that would be the process. For sure, if we're going to do it again, we'd get the county commission to say, yep, let's get the local delegation and put forth a bill in the state legislature, allow citizens to form a committee. The committee would study different forms of government, et cetera, and then come back with a recommendation. Then hopefully the delegation would put it on the ballot in some time in the future.
For the citizens to vote?
Yeah, for the citizens.
Okay.
Nobody gets to pick this without the citizens, right? That's the beauty. And then at that point, again, whether we consolidate or at least study, I'd love to see the county just realize that the current form of government doesn't work. I mean, think about it. We have some of the most amazing amenities in our community, right? We have some of the world's most beautiful beaches. We got a historic city right on the waterfront, a great university in UWF. We got a state college, we got an airport, a seaport, a gas utility, freight railroad services, an interstate runs right through the middle of the county for commerce, 3 major hospitals, IHMC, a AA baseball team, the military, Blue Angels,
The Bay Center.
Right, we have Navy Federal, we got GE,
I think it's about to be
International,
built.
we got on and on and on. We get these great amenities, but we continue to be one of the poorest counties in Florida. You know, Pueschel, we lag behind similar sized communities and a state in so many areas. Things like median income, VPK participation, free and reduced lunch rate, crime rate, single parent households, kindergarten readiness. So many things we're behind on. You got to say why? Why do we continue this? Some of it's generational poverty that's been around forever, but how do you fix that? Jobs fixes that, right? Economic development fixes that. Well, whose job is it to fix economic development in our community? Our county commission outsources that to Florida West. I want to be able to vote. When you run for governor or you're voting for governor or president, most of the time it's about economics, right? Whether it's tax situation or jobs or whatever. You never hear the county talk about that because they outsource that to somebody else. It's all about fix the potholes and those kind of things, right? Jobs is what creates a lot of economic opportunities and reduces that generational poverty and therefore fixes a lot of these issues.
So now that we have a strong mayor, what is it that would improve your vision of what Pensacola should be?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen dramatic changes in the city, right? I mean, you've seen, Mayor Hayward started it where he did a State of the City address. Mayor Robinson continued on, Mayor Reeves has continued on. So there's a vision they continue to create. Mayor Reeves has a 2035 plan. He won't even be in office then, right? But he's created this vision that he's going to try to put forth so that future mayors can hopefully continue to move that on. We don't have that in the county, right? So we need somebody to say, my job is to move this community forward. We talk all the time about whether there's traffic issues, whether it's the infrastructure stuff. You got to have a plan, and nobody's job seems to kind of deal with that plan.
And does he bring those issues to City Council and City Council votes on them, or is he able to make decisions on his own?
There's some, right? And that all depends on the charter. How you write the charter. For example, think about president and governor. The president isn't allowed to do anything they want to. The governor isn't allowed to do anything they want to. There's certain things they can do, executive orders, those kind of things, some budget things. But major issues typically have to go between the legislature and the governor or the Congress and the president.
Through the checks
Same
and
thing
balances.
Same thing would happen in the strong mayor, right? Or with the mayor in the city. The mayor has to go and get some type of consensus amongst the council and kind of sell that to council. And their job is to represent their constituents in that effort. And I think it works really well. The stronger you make those checks and balances, the better we are.
So if we were still under ceremonial mayor, would there be a reason to consolidate, or would you be wanting to consolidate without the ceremonial mayor? You would.
So what happens?
I mean, if the mayor was ceremonial, not strong, would it still be a good idea to consolidate?
No, because we'd have no. The whole point is to put somebody in charge, right? Back in the '60s, Jacksonville or Duval County and Escambia County were essentially the same size. I don't know if you grew up here or not.
I grew up here, and I did spend some time in Jacksonville and Duval County, like downtown in the business district, and it's a ghost town. It looks like Pensacola did in the 1970s.
Yep.
The buildings are dilapidated, they're empty. The houses don't, they need to be fixed up. It looks like I said, it looks like Pensacola in the 70s.
There was a number at the end of a license plan, -8 and -9. They were -8 and we were -9. So Duval County and Escambia County were essentially the same size. We flew over there during this effort and met with those folks.
When did they
In
consolidate?
the 60s.
Okay.
And what they said was the reason why Jacksonville has had success it has, and no city's perfect, is because
Everybody moved out to the beach.
they decided to consolidate and implement a strong mayor. If you look at Davidson County and Nashville, same thing. Davidson County and Nashville consolidated. I mean, it just makes sense to marshal all your resources together. But again, I'm not, that's my opinion. At the very minimum, I think we need to look at our former government and say, is this still the one we need? We're, I think, one of the only counties in Florida, if not the only county, that elects our individual commissioners district only. Now, I understand the reasons why, but that was in the 70s that happened. I think things have changed. We don't need to be district only anymore. And one of the ways to fix that, if you will, is to still keep districts for the legislative branch or the commission or council, but then have an executive branch that can be elected county or citywide.
Well, as I understand, there was a previous effort and attempt to consolidate. So what happened with that? Why didn't it catch on?
Well, it didn't catch on because, as I mentioned earlier, the county commissioners decided not to let that go forward. After we did all the work, after Judge Bell spent so much hours and along with the other 25 of us on that commission, I think the county commission got a little cold feet and it decided that they didn't want to put that forth to the electorate, right? Which is really unfortunate because I think at the end of the day, it's the citizens should decide whether or not the county commission.
So there are 41 cities out of 19,000 cities in the United States that have consolidated. So what is so much better about those cities that they have consolidated than the rest of them?
It's hard to do that, right? It's hard to find if you think about
how have they improved?
Yeah,
that's what I'm
if
saying.
Escambia County had 5, 6, 10 municipalities in it, it would be very hard to consolidate, right? Because all those different entities, but we have one city and one county. Jacksonville had one city, one county. Nashville, one city, one county. They have little tiny little things. We have Century, for example. But for the most part, it's one and one. So if you have 10 or 12 different municipalities in a county, it's hard to consolidate, right? We're a natural for that. So that's why there hasn't been many to do that.
Okay.
But it's not about whether they improve or not. You can say, well, are we going to improve without consolidation? The whole point is I want our citizens to be able to affect change with their vote. And in our current form of government, you cannot affect change with your vote. That's the bottom line. Whether it's you or me or him, whoever's voting, I want our vote to be for a certain agenda, right? Whatever that is. Whoever's running him, her, indifferent, I want that vote to be able to kind of say, I'm voting for a platform, and I'm going to hold that person accountable for that
and that's
platform.
what the mayor.
That's what a strong mayor or executive branch does, right? Whether you call it a county mayor, city mayor, whatever you call that position, that person has to run on a platform. They run the community like a CEO would, or just like the governor, just like the president. The current form of government was designed.
So you have to have a true visionary.
Right.
You can't have somebody that just knows a little about the city and knows some people. You have to have somebody who can think ahead.
You have to have a leader.
And who can obviously network beyond belief. And just a real true visionary
I mean, think about the stuff
of a way to lead and take a community.
If you think about stuff,
but then you have to have the voters agree with that visionary, and that's the way we want to take our community.
Or change, right? I mean, that's the beauty of that. You get to pick, right? Our citizens get more involved. I mean, think about some of the stuff Mayor Reeves is doing now at the port. Some great stuff, right? Now, whether or not we all agree, that's the choice, right? So he's taking some chances to do some inland port stuff and expand our port capabilities without interrupting downtown. And next year, when the vote comes up again, there might be somebody that comes up with a better option, better mousetrap, right? We don't have that in a council manager form of government where and you think about our county administrators, they typically only last a few years. They don't last very long because they go on to a better and brighter job, right? They're typically stepping stones. Well, I don't think Pensacola deserves to be a stepping stone. I can't remember the last county commission that really fulfilled their full term, their full contract. And what ends up happening is you end up paying that person to be gone because you fire them in the middle of the thing and you have to hire somebody else. So the county administrators at the
the county administrator, you're saying they get fired and have to move on.
Yeah, because
and they're appointed by the county commission, right?
Correct.
And what exactly is their role? What is their job?
In theory, that form of government is supposed to be a CEO role, And the county commission is supposed to be board of directors. Well, we all know the county commission does not act as a board of directors. They act as five little.
They act like they're in mayors of their own district.
Exactly. That's not the intention, right? The intention of the form of government is to spread the power out so that there's a CEO who's appointed by.
And that's not really happening. Is that because there's not a charter?
Right. Partly because there's no charter, there's no checks and balances, right? So it's a non-charter form of government, and the county administrators depends on who.
Because the appointed person works for the people or the group that appointed them. They don't work for the citizens.
That's correct.
And the elected official works for the citizens.
Correct.
And for the people who, the board.
Yeah.
They work for both.
Yeah, the county commission or the city council can't fire the mayor, but we can.
Yeah.
Right? Either through a recall effort or through voting against that person next time, right? And that's the beauty of that. If you're upset, again, in the county, if you're upset with the county administrator, my guy got one vote. My county commissioner gets one vote. Well, that's not going to fire the county administrator. And that's not a commentary on anybody currently in office, by the way. The point is, I think our citizens need the right to, when they cast their ballot, they're picking a direction. Right now, they don't have a direction to pick. We don't have people
in the county.
Yeah, in the county. In the city, it's just a stark contrast. And I think you're seeing the city grow. You're seeing the city. Look at our waterfront, Pueschel. That's in the county too, by the way. It happens to be in the city.
Right.
That's
confusing to a lot of people.
Any smart community would look at our waterfront and say that is valuable revenue generating stuff. Still want to protect the waterfront for the citizens. There's ways to do that. You go to any vibrant city in the world, San Antonio would be one of those.
Have a walkway, a boardwalk, and
waterfront there that's accessible by the citizens.
Stuff like what you have at the water.
Revenue generating property right there too. Imagine if you had a boardwalk that went from the 3 Mile Bridge as far west as you can go with access for the citizens to the waterfront.
I don't know anybody that would be against that.
Right, but the county acts like the city's a different entity. Instead of saying that money would generate a lot of money for the county as well. Think about the beach. Our beaches are jewel. It's our most revenue generating property out there, and it's castigated sometimes by the people in the county commission. Well, that's the beach. Well, we need to figure out better ways to get people in and out of that beach and to the city instead of east to Okaloosa County, because we want them to come to our city to spend money, right? We make money in our community by sales tax and those kind of things, but it's hard for people to get in and off the beach, on and off the beach, and nobody in the, our current county commissioner is working on that, but that should have been done 20 years ago. If you had a true leader in the county that was their job was to kind of foresee that in the future. I was on the Santa Rosa Island Authority years ago, and we talked about that 20 years ago, but nobody would ever catch on because that wasn't going to be a problem. Well, now it's a huge problem.
We're going to take a commercial break, and I want to remind our viewers that the Thornton Review is a civic engagement show with a purpose to spread awareness by interviewing local elected officials, candidates, and professional leaders. This is information you won't get anywhere else. You can watch the Thornton Review on our various outlets. Our website, thethorntonreview.com. On Vimeo, please follow the Thornton Review. On YouTube, please subscribe to the Thornton Review at the Thornton Review 7810. Please like our Facebook page, The Thornton Review Show. On TV, WBQP channels 12.1 and 12.8, and WBQP on Roku and Fire Stick. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with John Peacock on consolidating our local government. There is no government-funded program that can guide a man's thoughts. Only God can do that. Company can install any type of fence. When you call and mention the Thornton Review, you'll receive a $100 discount on your fence. They also offer military discounts. Vinyl fence, wood fence, aluminum fence, chain link fence. If it has the word fence, Alpha Fence Company can do it. 850-586-8020. 850-586-8020. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to continue our discussion with John Peacock on consolidating our local government. So, John, one question I wanted to ask you was, from your perspective, how would taxes be affected if we were to consolidate the city and county governments?
Well, I think there'd be more accountability, right, and more flexibility in how we do that. In most consolidated or charter governments, for example, in Beulah, they say, I want sidewalks. Well, that's more of a municipal function, right? But there's ways to implement MSTUs and MSTVs for those people that want that. So there's taxes would be dictated by that form of government, right? But accountable to the people, right? Right now, again, going back to our current form, if the county implements a tax rate change, who do you vote for or against for that? You get vote for your one. You can't affect change with that. And again, with the whole point of that form of government, or a form of government where there's accountability, is so that the citizens' voice matters. And right now it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. So taxes would be dictated by whatever the needs of the community are, right? I mean, pure and simple, just like it is now. But currently, who does that in the county? I mean, there's a budget. You don't know what your taxes are. You don't really have a say-so in that.
In the county, because in each district, we elect our county commissioner, and he's essentially acting as the mayor of that district, and
it's just one of five, right?
So he's calling the shots for his district, but all of the other county commissioners have to vote on the same issue.
Correct.
And so you have one out of five.
Right. And on the tax base, that's kind of again, most people, when you're running for an office, especially what did President Trump run on? What did DeSantis run on? And again, that's not a political comment. They ran on lowering taxes, et cetera. Who's run on that here in Escambia County? Who's looking at our property tax values? Who's looking at?
So your only hope would be if the county administrator agrees with you, but you're still not. You're still not voting on him.
County administrator.
Right.
That's the problem. And what do you think the chances are that person is going to kind of take a chance on upsetting 3 of the 5 county commissioners and then getting fired, right? Most county administrators or people in that kind of role, and that's not a commentary on this current county administrator, rarely do they push the envelope. All their job is to keep 3 of the 5 happy at any given time.
Right. Yeah, because he works for the county commissioners and not for the citizens.
Somebody work for us.
Yeah. It's just like
Mayor Reeves, Mayor Hayward, Mayor Robinson, they work for us.
It's like the appointed school superintendent.
Correct.
He does not work for the people. He doesn't work for the voters. He works for the people who appointed him, which would be the. So, would a good analogy for the county be that the county administrator is kind of the ceremonial mayor for the county?
The difference is that county administrator does run the departments, does have the job function of managing the county.
Kind of like what the mayor does for the city.
Well, the mayor has a chief of staff and a city administrator too.
But now we've got a strong mayor.
Tim Kinsella's job at the city, he's resigning and taking a job at the federal, but his job was to run the city. But the difference is now you have a mayor that's focused on the bigger issues, right? I don't want a mayor going down into the sanitation department and running the sanitation department. I want the mayor, just like the president has a chief of staff.
They don't change light bulbs.
Right, they're not.
They don't take out the
I
trash.
want the leader of our community to be a visionary, to kind of figure out what the job opportunities are.
That's what we need is a visionary.
And that's not the job of a county administrator. A manager just manages to a certain set of parameters, right? That theoretically laid out by whoever the board of directors is. I want the mayor or the CEO to really be a visionary and kind of take this community forward. Wake up and say, where are we going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years from now? What's the vision of this community? And lay out the plan to do it. Again, Mayor Reeves has laid out a 2035 plan. He's not even going to be in office then. Right, but he's laid out a plan, if he was in office, to be what Pensacola would look like then.
Okay, so he's a visionary. So what would the structure look like? Would we do rezoning? What would be taken away? What would be added in? And what would the zoning look like?
The beauty of that, Pueschel, is I don't know. The beauty of that is we get to decide. Once we formed this commission and decided we're going to study the forms of government, decided we're going to come up with a plan, and let's say we did consolidate or change the form of government to a charter, whatever happens to be, the citizens decide, right? There'll be a group of people that were appointed to create that plan, and we get to vote on it.
Who appoints that group of
Well,
people?
again,
City council and county
yeah,
commission?
typically it would be, last time there was a whole litany of people. There was 25 different people in the, there was a representative from UWF, representative from PSC, representative for League of Women Voters, representatives from each one of the elected officials got to appoint one or two, right?
Yeah.
So there's different people representing different areas. They all got together to come up for the greater good. That's what would happen this time.
Yeah, I would hope that ECUA, school board, county commission, city council would all have a say so.
That's all in that bill that the legislature, that was all laid out in the bill on who was appointed, who would be appointed, who would be the representatives of these different areas. So everybody got it.
So that bill, from the representative bill that you told me, that you showed me, was that passed? That obviously wasn't passed.
Yeah, that was passed.
That was passed.
We formed the commission.
Okay.
And then,
Okay, to form the commission to talk about consolidating.
correct. And we
Oh,
formed the
is it
commission.
still in effect?
No, it was.
Okay, so we'd have to do that again.
Correct. It doesn't take that long, right? But formed the commission and formed the study, and then we went back, and in theory, that would have been approved by them and then put on the ballot. But again, there were some changes at the county commission that decided they didn't want to give up their power.
So just so the average person can understand and wrap their brain around what's going on, do we have redundant departments? And would the departments be consolidated, or would we just do away with some of them?
Yeah, again, that would be a decision of the former government, and if we had an elected official like a mayor of the whole community, like Jacksonville and Nashville does now, that would be, you think
I'm
about
talking
it.
about like we've got a city police department and a county sheriff's office.
Over in Jacksonville, they just have a sheriff's department. And certainly you think, well, what if you need certain areas that need
You'd need
police?
substations. Yeah, so we'd keep the downtown substation.
Yeah, and areas that are more urban in nature, probably going to pay a little higher tax rate for that, right? Just like they do now. We pay a higher tax rate in the city than people in the county, right? That's because we have those extra services. You can still do that in a consolidated form of government, right? Those areas that need additional attention, but still, if the citizens decided that, again, we get to decide that, then they vote on some additional taxes to pay for those services.
Okay, so you mentioned taxes again, and a lot of people perk up when they hear taxes. So what would be different about our taxes? Are people in the city currently paying double taxes for certain services because they're paying for taxes on the city and taxes in the county for essentially the same thing?
Yeah, I pay probably more county taxes where I live now in the city than I did when I lived just in the county. And I pay city taxes too, right? So what does the city of Pensacola residents get for their county taxes? Well, you get some roads in the county, you get the jail and those kind of things. But you're also paying for parks and recs in the county, you're paying for parks and recs in the city, you're paying for a permitting department in the county, you're paying for permit. So all those things.
And libraries, the city libraries, the county libraries.
All those things, again, it's about accountability. The whole point of this conversation is I want an accountable form of government, whether it's just a charter in the county, whether it's changing the form of government, whether it's consolidation. I don't really care. I have an opinion. But at the end of the day, since I got here 30 years ago, I said something's wrong when your vote does not actually affect change. And that's problematic to me. It doesn't, every other form we have in life, right? You get at the state level, you get to vote for a governor, you get to vote for a president at the federal level. Why can't we do that at the local level?
Okay. So you said our current mayor has a vision for 2035. What is your vision? Say we consolidated, say if we consolidate, what would Pensacola look like in 10 years? And then what would it look like 10 years after that, and then 40 to 50 years down the road?
I think that, my hope is that it looks like whatever we decide it looks like. Meaning right now it's random change. You got things popping up and there's changes. People say, well, change is happening. I don't like change. Well, change is going to happen. I want us to be able to control the change. So how it looks is how we decide it looks. Meaning that if people say, I don't want to be Jacksonville, I don't want to be Nashville, I get that. But on the path we're going now with all the growth we're having, and sometimes it's uncontrolled growth, there's no real plan for infrastructure stuff. Like I said earlier about the beach, that issue should have been addressed 20 years ago, right? Well, who's looking at those things now to say, what are our growth projections going forward, especially with the tax issues in the blue and red states now? There's people are flooding to Florida. Who's looking at that? What's our infrastructure needs 5, 10, 15 years from now? I know Mayor Reeves has done that, but he's a small part of the deal. Who's doing that in the county to lay out that overall plan, and who's selling it to the citizens, right?
Who is our visionary?
Right. There's nobody's job to say, I'm running to make the county 5, 10, 15 years
like
from now.
Joe Riley.
But you're right,
He
well,
apparently was a visionary, and he transformed Charleston, South
it
Carolina
was incredible. They-
over the
that's
40 years that he was the mayor. When you mentioned him, I kind of did a little bit of research, and because I was very intrigued and wanted to know what he did.
In Pittsburgh, same way. He was vilified in Pittsburgh because he took a bunch of the buildings on the river in Pittsburgh and wanted to develop those. Right? They hated him for it because it was costing money, etc. 20 years later, they gave him a key to the city because it worked out so well. Right? He took the chance and he knew it was a good idea, and they love the guy now. Right? But they didn't like him when he was in office. Right? Which often happens. Right? So true visionaries do what they think is best, regardless of the political backlash. Right? I know Mayor Reeves has pushed the envelope on things like parking downtown. I think parking downtown has been a mess in that we haven't moved fast enough, right? I think our parking structure is, Mayor Reeves is headed in the right direction. It's just not going fast enough. Our parking revenue is one of those revenue sources that are not paid by local folks for the most part, and that revenue could be used for improvements paid by other people. I love use taxes, right? I love it when if I'm going to use a facility and I don't live there, I got to pay for that. Now, if I'm living there, that's somebody else help paying the bill. I mean, the streets and stuff have to be clean. Well, why not use some of the money paid by other people to help improve our community, right? And that's the kind of stuff you can do if you're a creative leader. I think Mayor Reeves is headed in the right direction.
I think parking is kind of a hot button for a lot of people right now. So what do you think about letting locals, people who live and work in the city, have like a yearly pass, like $25 or
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to do that, right? I think there's a lot of ways to skin that cat.
Is there any talk of doing
I
that?
think
Do you
there are
think?
always, Lisa Dees is in charge of parking downtown with the mayor's done a great job. Again, I think it's hard to bring people along. They go to other cities, and you go to another city, and oh, it's $10 to park there. You don't think about it.
Yeah, but we
Here,
don't.
for some reason, it's like it's.
I think most people do not want Pensacola to be another Washington D.C. or Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah,
We're not a big city. Pensacola is not a big city. We don't want big city bureaucracy.
well, it's coming. And I'd rather have the chance to say so to do that or not. Meaning that we have a lot of people moving our community, and it's become a little bit of a mess, right? The infrastructure needs that we have, and again, if I can figure out creative ways to pay for that, I mean, the roads, everything gets more expensive all the time. There's two different ways to pay for that: raise property taxes, or raise tax rates on the
I
citizens.
think permeable asphalt would be very expensive, so we need a way to pay for that.
Or usage fees, right? Again, I'm a big fan of usage fees. That other people pay for that stuff.
Right, yeah.
So clean up downtown. I wish they would have a sales tax on alcohol downtown. I'll pay for the cleanup downtown.
Should we have a population cap?
No.
At what point do we stop cutting down forests and paving over the land and creating flooding? I mean,
Well, again,
is there a responsible way to allow the population to grow without devastating our ecology and
and I'm going to go
environment?
back to the whole purpose of this conversation, Pueschel, is I have a vote in that. Theoretically, you have a vote for that. Right now, it doesn't matter. If 3 of the 5 county commissioners that you can't vote for decide to clear cut some of the area, you have no say so in that. But if there was a form of government where your vote counts, then there's a little more thought put in that. So whether I agree with that or not doesn't matter. My point is, when we have a form of government that all those things are addressed by the citizens at some point, right? I mean, I love the fact the president's every 4 years got to run for office. The governor, the mayor, they have to be accountable to the citizens every 4 years. In our community, the county commissioners are only accountable. They can easily say, well, I voted the way you wanted me to, but it's still happening because that's not accountability.
Right, they have a scapegoat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, stuff the school board. I talked about that. I can count to 3 too. If 3 also. If I'm looking at an issue and it's pretty controversial in my district, and there's already votes, even though I want it, I might vote the other way to make sure my people in my district like me, even though I still want that.
It happens all the time.
Accountability.
Yeah.
Right. Accountability is when you stand up and say, I voted for this reason. I'm going to take the political backlash. That's visionary. That's leadership, and we don't have that here.
Well, it's also somebody who's using their own vision and their own leadership as opposed to, who's funding them or who's pulling the strings, I guess, so to speak.
And you're always going to have that. I mean, political contributions have always played a factor. But again, if you have the checks and balances in place, there's a lot more people you have to get. You have to kind of get to in terms of those political contributions. Rather, right now it's just 3. You take care of 3 people, you're in good shape.
So I think we've got the Bears in Gulf Breeze, which is a different county, I understand, but we in
You're talking about the
Cantonment,
black bears,
the black
not
bears.
the other bears.
We have coyotes and raccoons and possums, and I mean, there's a whole deer.
Mhm.
Where are they going to? I mean, you're not for caps on the population, but we do need density laws because we have to have some sort of idea of what's going on with the wildlife. I mean, we can't just let all the wildlife go somewhere else because there's nowhere else to go.
So going back again to charter versus non-charter.
Mhm.
In the non-charter form of government or counties, they're whatever the state allows. In our charter, in a charter form, you can have specific initiatives and policies that are
And
geared
density laws
to your community.
or zoning,
Right,
zoning density.
in a non-charter, whatever the state allows.
Mhm.
If we decided, and you got enough people on your side in the Escambia County, say, yep, we want to make sure we have these rules, these referendums, these things in place
Mhm.
to make sure we don't violate X, Y, and Z, you can do that in a charter form. So in charter form, what that does is allow more local rule, and I love that. Why should the people in Tallahassee dictate how we do business in Escambia County, and we're going to do business differently than they do in a county in Central Florida? We should be able to dictate how we do business in Escambia County.
Right. And we also, responsible population growth, we have to look at the infrastructure. We have to look at our roads. If we have a 2-lane highway, miles and miles and miles, and we're adding subdivisions with 500 houses in each subdivision on this 2-lane little highway, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because you're just creating a traffic jam out in a rural area.
I
And
don't disagree.
so that's, you see that in the county. That's what's going on in the county right
But again,
now as we speak.
your vote doesn't matter there.
Uh-huh.
And that's the whole point. You got to have somebody say, yep, I want growth, I want responsible growth. And this is a plan. If we're going to have these subdivisions, we're going to have this infrastructure plan that everybody buys into, and you kind of sell that to the community and sell that to the citizens, so it makes sense. Right?
Because right now it doesn't seem like there's any responsible
Yeah, when's the last
population
time you saw
growth
a county
plan.
administrator or commissioner stand up and say, here's my vision for the next 5-10 years? You never.
They're just allowing subdivision after subdivision after subdivision. And I'm talking 500 house subdivisions in places that were forest just a few years ago. I grew up out there. And so I know I've seen it.
Right.
It's like that house, the book, the children's book, The Little House.
Yeah.
There was this little shack out in the boondocks, and then all of a sudden, as time progresses, there's a big city around
And
it.
some of
And that's what Cantonment and Beulah is going to be so overgrown. It's going to be just another metropolis out there.
some of that will still happen, right? But again, the difference is we get to say something about it, right? There's still always
If there was density, it wouldn't be allowed, but somebody is for the developers. They're not looking at the infrastructure. They're just looking at money from developers.
Right.
Which, I don't know.
Yeah.
I need to be able to vote for somebody who's a visionary, the way I want them to be.
Exactly. Well, again, it's not necessarily what I want. It's what we collectively want.
Well,
That's the point, right?
what's good for
Right,
what's
we all have
good for
different opinions. You have
everybody.
different opinion than me, but as a collective we should be able to dictate how things go, right? I might be on the losing end of every one of those, but we as a collective electorate should get to decide our vision of the future, and we don't do that now.
And it's not just only based on money. It shouldn't only be based on income and money.
Right.
It's what's good for the environment,
great
good for
theory, but,
everybody.
But again, the more opportunity you have as a citizen to dictate that, I think the less that comes into play.
What's the worst thing that could happen if our local government's consolidated?
Yeah, the worst thing would happen would be you get a bad, strong mayor, right?
Yeah.
But in 4 years, you get to change that. You get 4 or 5 bad county commissioners, as long as they make 50% of the 25-30% turnout happy because they've unclogged their retention ponds or got their trash picked, all those kind of things, then it's easy to be a county commissioner and stay elected because you don't really have much responsibility other than be responsive to the needs of the individual homeowner, right? If you say, well, your trash isn't being picked, I'll call somebody. Your retention pond is not being cut. There's a pothole, I'll get that fixed. That's what most people care about, what's happening on their street. Right? But if you're a visionary, if you're in charge, and so if you're going to stay a county commissioner, you can be there for as long as you want to. There's no term limits currently, unfortunately. But if you're elected official, again, Mayor Reeves only have a 3-year term or three terms. And once he's done. There's got to be somebody else. Good turnover. That's a good.
So the mayor's 3 4-year terms, so it's 12 years. So you're for term limits then?
Yeah, I think in the executive branch for sure. And I'm in the charter you can do that. You can't do that in a non-charter government. Recall, same
Oh.
thing. If you're upset, right now there's no recall provisions in a county. In a charter form of government, you can recall a county commissioner.
Mhm.
Why
You
would
have to have a
do that?
certain number of
Well, sure,
signatures,
you have to go
obviously.
through the process, you should be able to do that, right? But the whole point, and it goes back to accountability. So the worst thing would happen when you have a 4-year run of a bad leader. Well, again, hopefully the county, the commission or council or whatever would step up and help mitigate that. But again, you could recall that person if you want to, or wait 4 years and elect somebody else.
So what is the process of consolidating? Who gets to vote? It starts with the city council vote on it and county commission votes on it. Then do the citizens vote?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, what would happen would be the county and
Same way they did for the mayor
the
to
county and the city would decide, we're going to send this to the state legislator and form a commission to study it. The commission would study it, and then both entities would vote to say, yep, this makes sense to at least pursue, put it on the ballot. And then people that were for it would try to sell it to the citizenry. People that were against it, and there will be for whatever reason, get the try to persuade people to vote against it. At the end of the day, it's our decision to decide.
So obviously there'd be a lot of changes if it passed. And like how soon would the changes take effect? Would we elect a new mayor?
Yeah.
And would the current mayor be up for election? Would he be able to run?
Oh, sure. I'd imagine, right? I mean,
I'm not talking about any specific mayor. I'm just talking about at the time that it happened.
At the time it happens, I would imagine there would be think about it. In one day, you have a city government and a county government. The next day, you have a consolidated form of government. It's not going to happen that quick, right? But there'd be a phase-in process. And there would be an election process of this new form of government, right? And Jacksonville
So
currently
for all of the commissioner, if you call them council or commissioners, you'd have to come up with a name to call it.
Sure.
What would it be?
Well, it'd probably be the city, just like Jacksonville
The
is
city.
Jacksonville, Nashville is Nashville. This would probably be Pensacola. One time, Mayor Wibbs, way back when, God bless him, he was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
He and I talked, and we thought, well, man, maybe we should have an Escambia County north of Navajo Road and Pensacola County south of Navajo, because two distinctly different things. There's a million ways to do that, right?
Sure.
But clearly, all the money, beach, other utilities and stuff and it would be in Pensacola County, so that probably wouldn't be very good for Escambia County, but that was his thought. And the point there is we would have an election process to decide how many county commissioners / councilmen we need. I think Jacksonville right now, last I looked, was about 19. Some of those district-wide, some of them at large. And then, of course,
19.
Yeah, and we wouldn't need that many,
Right.
not that big. But,
Well, we have 5 county commissioners now. We have 6 city council, but we're not talking about the city area. We're talking about all of Escambia County,
Right.
including the downtown business district, including the city district. So instead of having county commissioners and instead of having city council, we could call it whatever we wanted.
Right.
It could be Pensacola County, it would be Escambia County, but the city of Pensacola would encompass all of Escambia County.
Right.
And would we redistrict the?
Yeah, I'm sure they would. That would just make sense, right? To redistrict things, and whether we have still 5 or have 7, that's up to the
Because you could make them smaller,
yeah, we could
just
make
to add
smaller,
more
right.
people.
There's no Duval County government anymore,
Mhm.
right? There's just Jacksonville form of government, right? So, and that would happen here in Pensacola too, right? But again, take the personalities out, the current people out. There would be a new election for all those seats, and there'd be the commission or council would be a legislative branch, just like the state legislature, just like Congress, and then the executive branch would be the mayor, just like the governor and the president now.
Do you have a team working on this currently?
No, again, until we get some, we tried a couple of years ago. There was an effort. We thought it was worth doing again. The current county commissioners at the time, even though they had voiced some frustration with the current form of government, at the end of the day, they like to be in 1 of 5, right? So until the citizens decide that this form of government isn't working, I think the citizens need to ask themselves, why do we continue to be one of the poorest counties in Florida? And is this form of government still the one that's representative to us and what we want going forward? I have a hard time believing people will say yes, because it hasn't worked. The socioeconomics of the African American community hasn't improved at all in the past 50 years. We continue to be one of the poorest areas, and we lag behind the state and similar sized counties. And you got to ask why. We have all these great resources. So what's missing? We have incredible philanthropy here, incredibly business owners here. So is it just the public side is lacking? Because I'm not a fan of government solving problems, but they certainly can pull together resources and help kind of pave the way. That hasn't happened here. The city, I think it's happening. You see great strides in the city. From Mayor Hayward to Mayor Robinson to now Mayor Reeves. You don't see that happen in the county. And they got all the money.
Thank you for spending the time to sit down and explain all of this to me in great detail. I think you explained it to me in a way that I can understand and wrap my brain around it. And I might still have some questions. There's still questions.
Sure.
Because you don't know. And a lot of times your answer is, well, you don't know
Right.
until it happens.
Right.
But I'd like to see a study. I would like to know who our mayor would be, or at least who some of the candidates would be. And I'd like to know the environmental impacts of, and that has to do with issues of, the platforms of the candidates.
I think it'd be dangerous to know who the candidates would be, because that could make people think about it the wrong way,
Mhm.
right? You want to create a structure which people we don't even know
Mhm.
would come out of the woodwork and go, wow, that person, that man, that woman really has their act together. They want to take our community forward. I don't want to know who they might be.
Well, thank you again. I'm going to have you back on.
Sure.
The Thornton Review is on the air to provide public awareness and intellectual infrastructure to our community. This show is made possible by Ida Gates Godly Teas LLC, Alpha Fence Company, and our guest, John Peacock, retired financial advisor. It was great to have you on. I really appreciate it. And we want to thank you for watching this episode of the Thornton Review. Bye-bye.